Hey, this is Dr. Barry. In this video today, I want to make a confession. I want to admit some things to you, and I want to warn you against listening to anything else I have to say because I'm going to admit today that the keto diet is the worst diet in the world. Um, I was silly to ever recommend the ketogenic diet and intermittent fasting. I based my opinion on common sense, on our DNA, on how we've lived for the last million years on this planet, and on lots of research. And that was all silly. I shouldn't have done any of that. I should have just followed what the expert opinion is and just shut up. But I didn't do that. And so now I'm going to admit to you today that the keto diet is the worst diet in the world. Now, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please don't subscribe to this channel because all my other videos on this YouTube channel are based on research and common sense and our ancestral heritage on this planet. So obviously, I didn't consult an expert panel for any of my videos, so therefore they're stupid and you shouldn't watch them. So don't subscribe and definitely don't share this on your social media, okay? The U.S. News and World Report recently came out with an article, and it's all over their website, the best diets in the world, and they rank them from best to worst. And the ketogenic diet was dead last. And I'm glad they did that. I think they were right because the ketogenic diet is stupid and you shouldn't follow it. The way they did this is they didn't really think about the human species and where we came from and what we've eaten for the last hundreds of thousands of years. That didn't really factor into their opinion. They didn't really look at any studies. They didn't look at any research, any meaningful research. What they did was they just convened a panel of 25 experts and they asked their opinion. What are the best diets? And I want you to rank them from best to worst. And these 25 experts were happy to do this because they got the exposure of being in U.S. News and World Report, all the books they've written, the diet plans that they make money off of, the websites they make money from. They all, obviously they were happy to do that. And well, I don't mean they were happy to get that exposure. I mean they were happy to help us to correct our ignorance. That's what they were happy to do. And it's weird because they had six MDs on their panel, medical doctors, but everybody knows that medical doctors aren't capable of giving nutritional advice. I mean, take for example Sean Baker. He lost his medical license because he gave nutrition advice. Basically, he's an orthopedic surgeon. You may or may not have heard of him, but he had the audacity. I mean, he was an orthopedic surgeon. He's supposed to cut off diabetic feet and diabetic toes and diabetic legs. That's his job. So, dude, shut up and do your job. He, however, started talking to diabetics and said, hey, if you change your diet, if you went high fat, low carb, carnivorous, if you went, ketogenic, you could save your leg and not have to have me chop it off. I mean, I'm sure he had his reasons for telling the patients that. I don't know. I mean, he got paid to chop legs off, yet he, for some reason, chose to try to teach patients how to keep their legs. That's stupid, right? And so he wound up losing his license over that, and he should have. That's good for him. He should have just listened to the expert opinion and shut up. What about Gary Fettke in Australia? Another orthopedic surgeon. He got tired of chopping off diabetic legs and feet and toes and getting paid well to do that. And he started counseling patients. Hey, you should just stop eating lots of whole grains and low fat milk, and you should really, not eat so many carbs, and your diabetes would get better, and you could keep your toes and keep your legs. And he's been put through hell down in Australia because he had the audacity and obviously the ignorance to defy the expert opinion and actually give his patients information about how to keep their extremities. I don't know what he was thinking, really. And then what about Tim Noakes of South Africa promoting the Banting diet, which is high fat, low carb? And he's been in a world of trouble, and rightfully so. Dr. Noakes, you should just shut up and go by the expert opinion. What's wrong with you? And I'm going to do that from now on. I'm not going to go by the research and what actually works for my patients and things that actually lower their A1C and their triglycerides. I'm just going to go by what the expert opinion is. and because that's what I should do as a doctor. I shouldn't think, I shouldn't think and research and stuff. And there's a couple of other doctors who are, on the verge of being in trouble any day now. Dr. Jason Fung, he's a nephrologist. And rather than just shut up and write prescriptions for people who have kidney failure and manage their dialysis for them as they go through the end stage of renal failure and die their miserable deaths, they're destined to die. He, I don't know, thought it would be a good idea to counsel these patients, to counsel them and say, hey, if you stop eating all the carbs, your diabetes will get better and your kidney damage will stop. And then you won't have to have kidney failure and kidney transplants and dialysis and all that. He's on the verge of getting in trouble. He should. That's stupid. He should shut up and go with what the experts tell him. And then this other guy is a cardiologist, William Davis. You may have heard of him. He wrote a book called Undoctored, which basically says don't listen to the expert opinion. I'm going to tell you, I was a heart doctor, blah, 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 whatever, whatever. Shut up, Dr. Davis. Just go with what the expert opinion is, okay? Do your job. Write a bunch of prescriptions for these people. Do a bunch of heart caths. Put in a bunch of stents that have been proven not to help. But that's okay because that expert opinion was that they did help. That's what you should do. And me and Dr. Fung and Dr. Davis, we should all get in trouble also and be spanked by our government and our medical boards because we're obviously not listening to the opinion of the expert panel. So I don't know why they had the 6 doctors on there. They should have just had dietitians and nutritionists and other researchers who were trained in schools that were sponsored by, beneficent benign corporations like Kellogg's and Kraft and huge big food basically, because who knows better what we should eat than big food because they're big food. I mean, they know about food. And so you should listen to the dietitians and nutritionists who've been trained by big food. That's who really should set our diet. And then also corporations who've been in business for decades helping us lose weight, like Weight Watchers and Jenny Craig and people like that, because they obviously know about food and weight loss because that's what they do for a living. So anyway, the 7 categories that the expert panel went through to decide what were the best and worst diets, they decided how easy a diet was to follow, because the keto and intermittent fasting diet's very hard to follow. Nobody can do it. I mean, never in the history of humanity has anybody followed high fat, low carb, with intermittent fasting. No humans have ever fasted, ever. I mean, that's dumb to even suggest such a thing. And then no one's ever eaten, almost no grains and no low fat dairy. No one's ever done that and been healthy, right? I mean, regardless of what history and the research tells us, the expert panel said that's really never happened. The next thing was the diet's ability to produce short-term weight loss and the diet's ability to produce long-term weight loss. And then the next one was very important, nutritional completeness. We'll get back to that later. But I think that's probably what carried the most weight in the expert's opinion about this. Next is the safety of the diet. And this is something I've been ignoring because I've had so many patients die on the ketogenic diet and so many patients whose diabetes got worse on the ketogenic diet and patients who've had heart attacks and strokes. And I mean, people are dropping like flies on the ketogenic diet. So I should have thought about this earlier. One of the categories was the diet's ability to prevent and manage diabetes. Another one was the diet's ability to prevent and or manage heart disease. That was it. That was their criteria. There was no criteria at how good this diet is at correcting long-term correction of obesity. They didn't really feel like that was important, and I agree with them because they're an expert council. I should listen to them. Obesity is not. I mean, even though it's a risk factor for every cause of morbidity and mortality in humans, I shouldn't worry about obesity. And they also didn't worry about how you feel on a diet, like if your mental clarity is better, if you have more energy, because all that stuff's dumb. Who cares about that anyway? They didn't factor that into their decision. And then all the other benefits of the diet, how it lowers your triglycerides, how it lowers your A1C, how it actually can improve your liver function and get rid of fatty liver and get rid of fat in the pancreas. All those things are dumb. Doctors shouldn't focus on that. They should just listen to this expert committee. And so let me tell you the diets that you should start following immediately based on the expert opinion, because that's all we should listen to. The best overall diets, number one was the DASH diet. Number two was the Mediterranean diet, and we're going to talk more about that in a second, because the Mediterranean diet that these experts are actually promoting is not actually what Mediterraneans did and do eat. It's basically their interpretation of what a Mediterranean diet should be, but that's irrelevant. We should listen to the experts. Then the next one is the flexitarian diet, which I personally, that's my favorite because it rhymes with vegetarian. Therefore, obviously, it's got to be healthy, right? So, and then the next category was best weight loss, and that's Weight Watchers was number one, by far and away number one. Number two was the volumetric diet, which I haven't heard a lot about, so I had to research that before I made this video. Next is Jenny Craig. So those are the top three for weight loss, and I'm sure they're meaning long-term, meaningful weight loss that actually affects your health, because that's what people really care about. But that doesn't matter what you care about; it matters what the expert opinion was from this committee. Another category was best for controlling diabetes. Number one, Mediterranean diet. Let's call it the pseudo-Mediterranean diet, because no one in the Mediterranean actually eats this diet, but we're going to call it that. Number two was the DASH diet. That's a big deal. And then the flexitarian, because it rhymes with vegetarian. That was the third in that category. The next category was best at heart health. Best diets for heart health. Number one, far and away, the DASH diet. Number two, the pseudo-Mediterranean diet. And then number three, another diet near and dear to my heart, the Ornish diet, because it's been proven time and time again by tons of meaningful, well, don't worry about research. That's irrelevant. Just worry what this council told you. These expert people, they're the experts. I'm not an expert. You're not. Shut up. Just listen to this panel. So let's talk about the big winners. Weight Watchers. Now, you should do the Weight Watchers diet. Weight Watchers diet was founded in the 60s, in the 1960s. And I know for some of you guys in your 20s, you're like, God, that was like forever ago. They had black and white TV and crap back then. Yes, they did. That was way before my time, but yeah, it was, I mean, that was a long time ago, right? And so when Weight Watchers came out in the 60s, if you look at the statistical data for obesity, heart disease, diabetes, immediately when the Weight Watchers diet caught big, immediately the curve started doing this, and obesity started to take a nosedive. The incidence of diabetes and heart disease and stroke, just they nosedived because the Weight Watchers diet is so awesome. People lost the weight, they kept it off forever. That's why there's no obesity in America today. And Weight Watchers is also big in the UK and in Australia and in Ireland. And if you live in one of those countries, you also know that obesity is not even an issue anymore since Weight Watchers came on the scene. They really just turned the tide on obesity, and it's no longer anything that doctors have to worry about, according to this panel. The next big winner in these categories was the DASH diet. DASH diet was originally conceived, it was a very low salt diet. Get it? DASH, the dash of salt. It was meant to decrease hypertension and thereby decrease heart disease, heart attack, and it failed miserably in every meaningful study to do either of those. It maybe lowered blood pressure a point or two, but when you look at the overall decrease in morbidity, mortality, it's non-existent, but that doesn't matter. So shut up. Don't listen to your brain on this. Listen to this expert panel. The DASH diet says eat lots of whole wheat, drink lots of low-fat milk. And since it came out in the 90s, there's been another plunge in obesity, in heart attack and stroke, in diabetes onset. I mean, there's the reason there's no such thing as pediatric type 2 diabetes these days is because of the DASH diet and Weight Watchers. They eliminated pediatric obesity and all the morbidity and mortality that goes along with that because of these diets. They changed the world. The next is the Ornish diet. Now, Dr. Ornish is I think, a vegetarian, and so lo and behold, he thinks that's the best diet. Very, very low fat and almost meat free, animal free, and he started pushing this diet back in '89. And those of you guys who were, in your teens and 20s and 30s back in '89, you remember when you walked outside and you were like, God, people are losing weight like crazy. It's ridiculous. What's going on here? It was the Ornish diet. That's what did it. That's why the obesity epidemic took a nosedive in 89, 90, 91, was because everybody was following the Ornish diet. Everybody got lean. People stopped having all these heart attacks, diabetes, type 2 diabetes just went away as a concern. If you were practicing medicine back in 89 like I was, you were standing around with your script pad waiting to write insulin prescriptions. You're like, where are all the damn diabetics? I don't know. They're gone. So thank you, Dr. Ornish, for turning around the obesity and diabetes epidemics back in 89 with your diet. Now, just Scientific America, they're a pretty prestigious popular scientific magazine. They came out with this article sometime back about how Ornish had made up a bunch of crap and had kind of misled and misspoken about a lot of the statistics and stuff. But nobody from Scientific American was on this expert council, so you shouldn't listen to that stupid Scientific American article. I mean, who reads Scientific American anyway? I don't know. But regardless, it doesn't matter because the expert council said that you should follow the Ornish diet, so you should do that. Okay, and then the flexitarian. I mean, that's my favorite. It rhymes with vegetarian, and it basically is a vegetarian diet. And it basically says if you're just an idiot and you want to add a little bit of meat here and there, it's fine. You can do that. It's not the end of the world. But the flexitarian diet, I mean, and then also the volumetrics diet. They propose eating lots of fruit, lots of grains, and eating super low fat. And so you may notice that all the diets that won kind of follow the eat lots of carbs, eat low fat, eat lots of whole grains. They're all kind of like that, aren't they? So the Mediterranean diet, I forgot to say this. Basically, all the research done on the Mediterranean diet was done in post-war Italy and Spain, when the countries had basically been destroyed after World War II, and there was nothing to eat, and so everyone was starving. Grown men weighed 130 pounds because there was nothing to eat, because everything had been blown up. There was no production. You couldn't make anything. You had to start from scratch growing things again. And so they thought that would be a great time to study the Spanish and the Italians and figure out what the perfect diet for humans were. But the problem with this diet is, well, it's a problem for me, but not for this expert council, was that they ignored the French. And they called it the French paradox, which means we don't know why it's that way. We can't explain it, but just ignore it. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't matter. But the French eat tons of fat and cook everything in butter, and they live right on the Mediterranean Sea. But somehow we don't include them in the Mediterranean diet. And the true Mediterranean diet, even in Spain and Italy, is very high fat, tons of olive oil, lots of meat. I mean, and so yeah, but don't worry about that. Just follow the pseudo Mediterranean diet, which is what this panel says to do. So let's go back. You remember the criteria, the 7 criteria. One of those was nutritional completeness, and basically every one of these diets follows the food pyramid or the My Plate from the federal government. That's what it follows. And so in order for a diet to be complete and have nutritional completeness, it must include whole grains, lots of whole grains, and lots of low-fat dairy. It has to include that. Otherwise, how would all the farmers who grow wheat and all the farmers who have dairy cattle, how would they? Well, and it's really not even about the farmers. I love the farmers. What it's about is the huge corporations that farm the farmers. That's what this is all about. How would ADM and all these other huge corporations, how would they keep their board of directors happy if we started saying, hey, stop eating whole wheat? It's really not that great for you. Stop drinking skim milk. It's really not that great for you. I mean, that could affect the national economy. And regardless of whether it helped obesity and type 2 diabetes or not, that's not the point. The point is we want these huge corporations to be successful so we can be successful as a country. If our life expectancy is going down and our rates of obesity and type 2 diabetes are skyrocketing, so what? That's irrelevant. That's the price you pay for prosperity, people. So you need to listen to these experts and stop listening to doctors like Jason Fung, a board certified nephrologist. Don't listen to him. And don't listen to William Davis, a board certified cardiologist. And don't listen to me, a board certified family physician, because we are not telling you what the expert panel said. Therefore, what we're saying is dumb and you shouldn't listen to us. Okay. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please, I beg you, don't share this on Facebook or Twitter. or Instagram, because you're just going to turn other people on to the ketogenic diet. And it's obviously the worst diet in the world. So why would you want to do that? And then if you really enjoyed this and you want to support me more personally and give me $1 or something, definitely don't support me on Patreon, because if you do, I'll just keep making lots of videos about the ketogenic diet and intermittent fasting and all the positive effects it has on human beings. And why would anybody want that? Because that's not what this expert panel said. This is Dr. Berry. I apologize. Please forgive me. I'll see you in the next video.